the part that makes you think a little bit, inshallah ta'ala, about how wholesomeness is looked at through our deen, through our tazkiyah, but not the part that makes you uncomfortable. Another example, Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu, a very wealthy man, exceedingly wealthy man. I'm using wealth because it's an obvious example to start with when we're talking about good qualities. What was the quality other than sadaqah, other than charity, that Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu was distinguished by? He was shy. Haya is a much broader term than shyness, but so modest. You know, haya includes modesty, humility, shyness. It includes many different things. But haya, Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu, like if you knew him, the love that people had for him, the wealth that he possessed, the position that he possessed in society, yet he would be the quietest person in the room. He'd be the shyest person. He didn't walk around with swag. He walked around with a lot of humility, to where if you didn't know him, you wouldn't assume anything about his circumstances. You might even assume the opposite. Because he was quiet, he was shy, he was modest, he was humble with people. You'd never know. So he had a quality that was expected of someone of his circumstance, and he shined with it, which was super generous with his wealth. The Prophet ﷺ asks for something, he comes forth and he gives it, which is what you would want from someone that has that wealth. But then he has a quality that is rare to find with someone that has those circumstances. Wholesomeness, right? You see what I'm getting at here. Luqman al-Hakim, alayhi salam. Luqman is known for his wisdom, his wise speech, deeply poetic. His parables were legendary. Every time he spoke, alayhi salam, it became a statement that was etched in the minds of everyone, in the hearts and minds of everyone that was around him. So poetic, so eloquent, but Luqman al-Hakim was distinguished actually by his silence. When he went to a gathering, Luqman was the quietest person there. Ibn al-Jawzi rahimahullah has a story, and this is not a hadith, so I want to point this out there. It's just a parable about Luqman al-Hakim. He said that it was said that one time Dawood alayhi salam spoke in a gathering, and Luqman al-Hakim was in that gathering, and he's talking about this idea, and he said that Luqman did not speak the whole time. So Dawood alayhi salam asked him why he didn't say anything, and he said, is there any use, I'm paraphrasing, is there any use in speech unless it is about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And is there any good in silence unless you're thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So your silence should be meaningful, your speaking should be meaningful. I was in a meaningful silence. And I didn't find that meaningful speech overcame the beauty of meaningful silence in these moments. Right? Again, this is not a hadith, it's a story that's narrated that Ibn al-Jawzi rahimahullah mentions, but certainly a great wisdom. And the Prophet ﷺ praises his wisdom, and even more than that, Allah praises his wisdom in the Quran. Usually people that are poetic are going to talk more. Usually people that are eloquent and articulate are going to talk more, and they won't know when to be quiet, because they'll start becoming invested in their own speech. And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that one of the signs of the Day of Judgment is everyone is fascinated by their own opinion. Everyone has an opinion, and everyone is fascinated by their own opinion, as if it's an informed opinion. No, getting a bunch of retweets and a bunch of likes and shares and a bunch of forwards and people that think at the same level as you, confirming everything that you say, does not mean that you have an informed opinion. Just because it resonates with a lot of people doesn't mean it's informed. So one of the signs of the Day of Judgment is everyone becomes fascinated by their opinion. I shared an opinion, it's the greatest thing in the world. It sounded great, even if it was entirely uninformed and illiterate, but it sounded great. So people get used to hearing their own voices. And if you're articulate, like Luqman al-Hakim alayhi salam, silence is not usually a trait that you're going to find. So the quality that was expected of him, wisdom with his eloquence, he called to good things, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala immortalized the conversation of a man with his child on their walk. I mean, you have to be an incredible person of character and wisdom that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will turn this advice that you're giving to your son on a walk into a surah of the Quran. Right? So a man